my daughter-in-law announced on New Year's Eve. "We're going to put you in a nursing home. You're too old to be useful." Heartbroken, I packed my bags and decided to run away. At the bus station, I couldn't stop crying. A young woman asked if I was okay, so I told her everything. She made a phone call and said, "Dad, I found her. Yes, I'm sure. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." I stood in the doorway of what had been my bedroom for the past 12 years, clutching a worn floral suitcase that still smelled faintly of mothballs and memories. My hands trembled not from age, though I was 75, but from the shock that still hummed through my bones like electricity through frayed wire. "We're going to put you in a nursing home. You're too old to be useful." The words had come from Jacqueline, my daughter-in-law, barely 30 minutes ago. She'd said them while pouring herself a glass of champagne preparing for the New Year's Eve party they were hosting. The party I was apparently not invited to. My son Mason, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after his father died, had stood behind her, avoiding my eyes. His silence a betrayal sharper than any words could have been. "Mom, it's for the best," he'd finally muttered, studying the expensive Italian tiles I'd watched them install last spring. Tiles I'd helped pay for with the small inheritance from my parents' estate. "You'll have people your own age, activities. It's a nice place. A nice place." As if loneliness could be cured with bingo and fluorescent lighting. I'd moved in with them after my husband passed, when Mason insisted I shouldn't be alone. That was before Jacqueline. Before the big house in the suburbs, before I became invisible. I'd cooked their meals, watched their children until the boys grew old enough to be embarrassed by their grandmother's outdated clothes and simple ways. I'd cleaned, organized, made myself small and useful, hoping that usefulness would equal belonging. It hadn't. Now I was old, not useful. An inconvenience taking up space in their guest room, which Jacqueline wanted to convert into a meditation studio. The house hummed with preparation around me. Caterers moving through the kitchen, florists arranging dramatic displays in the living room. I was no longer allowed to sit in because I might spill something. I'd been given a sandwich on a paper plate for dinner, eaten alone in my room while they sampled Orves I'd never even heard of. I looked around at my small space. The photographs on the nightstand. Mason as a gap-toothed 7-year-old. Mason graduating college. Mason's wedding where I wore a dress Jacqueline called quaint in a tone that meant something else entirely. The quilt my mother had made the only luxury I'd allowed myself to keep. The stack of library books I'd been reading because I was too ashamed to ask to share their streaming services. This was what my life had become. Small, apologetic waiting. But I had one thing they'd forgotten about, the country house. My parents had left it to me, a modest cottage 2 hours north in a town I hadn't visited since their funeral 8 years ago. It was old, probably falling apart, but it was mine. Mason didn't know about it because I'd never mentioned it. Some instinct even then telling me to keep one thing sacred. One thing that couldn't be taken or converted or meditated in. I decided an hour ago, standing in the kitchen doorway watching Jacqueline laugh with her friends, while pointing at paint swatches for my new studio, that I wasn't going to any nursing home. I was going to leave tonight before they could make the arrangements, sign the papers, dispose of me like outdated furniture. My savings were modest. About $3,000 I'd managed to keep in an account they didn't know about, built from birthday checks from my late sister and the few dollars I could squirrel away from my Social Security before Mason helped me manage the rest. It was enough to get me started. It had to be. I'd packed quickly, taking only what I could carry: clothes, toiletries, my mother's quilt, the photographs, and a small wooden box containing my wedding ring, some old letters, and the last birthday card my husband had given me before the heart attack took him. Everything else could stay. Let Jacqueline have it all. The hardest part was writing the note. I'd sat at the small desk by the window listening to champagne corks popping downstairs, and tried to find words that weren't bitter. I failed. I won't be a burden anymore. Don't look for me. I hope your party is everything you wanted. I left it on the bed and walked out while they were all in the backyard admiring the fireworks setup. No one noticed me slip through the front door. No one had noticed me for months. The bus station was nearly empty on New Year's Eve. Most people were home with family, real family, the kind that wanted you there. I sat on a plastic chair bolted to the floor, my suitcase at my feet, and checked the schedule. One bus left for Millbrook at 10:47 p.m. It was 9:15 now. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making everything look sickly and surreal. A tired-looking man slept across 3 chairs near the vending machines. A young couple argued in whispered Spanish by the ticket counter, and I sat alone watching the minutes tick by on the digital clock, each one taking me further from the life I'd known. That's when the tears came. Not quiet, dignified tears, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body, the kind that come from somewhere deeper than sadness. Loss, rejection, the terrible understanding that the people you'd sacrificed everything for could look at you and see only inconvenience. That your son, your baby, the child you'd held through nightmares and nursed through fevers, could stand silent while his wife erased you. I tried to muffle the sounds with my hand, ashamed even now, even here, to take up space with my grief. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I looked up, tears blurring my vision, and saw a young woman crouching in front of me. She was maybe 30, with kind eyes and dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore scrubs under her winter coat, a nurse maybe, or a medical technician. "I'm fine," I managed. The automatic lie everyone expects. Just, "It's been a difficult day." She didn't move. "You don't look fine. Can I call someone for you?" Family. The word family made me laugh. A broken sound that scared us both. No family. Not anymore. She sat down in the chair beside me, her presence unexpected and oddly comforting. "I'm Debbie. I'm a good listener if you want to talk. And I've got time. My bus doesn't leave until 11. Maybe it was her kindness. Maybe it was the accumulated loneliness of months, years of being invisible. Maybe it was because she was a stranger, and strangers were safe. You could tell them the truth because you'd never see them again. Whatever the reason I found myself talking, I told her everything. Mason and Jacqueline, the nursing home announcement, the New Year's Eve party I wasn't invited to, the guest room I'd lived in like a ghost, the meals eaten alone, the gradual eraser of my presence until I became background noise in my own son's life. I told her about the country house, about running away at 75 because it was better than being put away like a broken appliance. I told her about the note I'd left and the $3,000 that was supposed to be my new beginning. She listened without interrupting, her hand finding mine and holding it tight. When I finished, she pulled out her phone. "I need to make a call. Is that okay?" I nodded, too emptied out to be curious. She walked a few steps away, her voice low but urgent. I caught fragments. "Found her. Yes, I'm absolutely sure. The bus station. Dad, you need to come now." She returned and sat back down, still holding my hand. "Help is coming. I promise. Just wait with me, okay? I don't understand," I said, confusion cutting through the numbness. "You will." She smiled, and there was something in that smile, recognition, wonder, certainty. "Mrs. Baker, do you remember teaching kindergarten a long time ago?" The question was so unexpected that I almost didn't answer. Yes. I taught for 37 years before I retired. Why did you ever have a student named Dale Martinez? The name stirred something in my memory. Dust, mows dancing in sunlight. Dale. There were so many children. He was the boy whose parents were immigrants, the one who came to school in shoes that were too small with holes in his clothes. And then I remembered a small boy with enormous dark eyes and a hunger for learning that had broken my heart. His parents worked 3 jobs between them trying to build a life in a new country. They were proud people who wouldn't accept charity, but their son needed clothes, needed shoes, needed supplies. So I'd bought them myself. Not much. I was a teacher, not wealthy, but enough. Shoes that fit, a warm winter coat from the thrift store, notebooks and pencils. I'd told Dale they were extras, donations from other families. Because I knew his parents' pride wouldn't allow direct help. I'd done it because it needed doing, because a child shouldn't suffer for circumstances beyond his control. I'd never told anyone, never thought of it as anything special. It was just what you did, what you were supposed to do. You remember, Debbie said softly, watching my face. I remember Dale. Such a bright boy, but I don't understand what. He's my father, and he's been looking for you for 45 years. The bus station seemed to tilt slightly, reality shifting into something I couldn't quite grasp. Debbie's words hung in the air between us like something solid, something I could almost touch, but couldn't quite believe. Your father, I repeated slowly, testing the words. Dale Martinez is your father. Yes. She squeezed my hand tighter, her eyes bright with emotion. He talks about you all the time. Mrs. Baker, the kindergarten teacher who changed everything. He's tried to find you for years, but you moved after you retired, and the school district's records were, well, it was a long time ago, different systems. He hired investigators, checked social media, everything. And tonight of all nights, I find you here. I shook my head, overwhelmed. I didn't do anything special. I just bought a little boy some shoes. You did so much more than that. Debbie's voice cracked slightly. Do you know what it meant to him to feel seen? To know that someone cared, whether he had what he needed. His parents were working themselves to death, proud and scared and trying so hard. They couldn't give him everything and it killed them. But you made him feel like he mattered. The memories were flooding back now, sharper and clearer. Dale Martinez, 5 years old, sitting in the reading corner with a book, his 2 small shoes discarded beside him because they hurt his feet. The careful way he'd eaten his lunch, making each bite last, and how I'd started packing extra sandwiches, claiming I always made too much, the pride on his face when I'd given him that winter coat, telling him another student had outgrown it. He was so smart, I said quietly. I remember thinking he could do anything if he just had the chance. He did. Debbie smiled through tears. He got scholarships. Went to college, then law school. He's one of the most successful attorneys in the state now. Immigration law. He helps families like his parents, make sure they don't get exploited, fights for people who can't fight for themselves. And he says it all started because one teacher showed him that kindness exists, that people can care about strangers, that he was worth someone's time and money and attention. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed around something too big for words. He married my mom when he was 28. She was a teacher, too. He says that wasn't a coincidence. They had me and my brother. Dad built this whole beautiful life, and he's never forgotten where he started. Never forgotten you. Debbie wiped her eyes. Every year on the first day of school, he donates supplies to low-income students. Shoes, coats, backpacks, everything. He calls it the Baker Fund, though it's anonymous. He's been doing it for 20 years. The Baker Fund named after me. For something I'd done without thinking, without expecting anything, without even remembering it as particularly significant until this moment. Debbie, I can't. I struggle to find words adequate to this revelation. You don't have to say anything, just wait, he's coming. He'll be here in... She was at a dinner party when I called, but he left immediately. Mrs. Baker, you have no idea what this means to him, to finally find you. We sat in silence for a moment, the bus station's harsh lighting suddenly feeling less hostile, more like a stage where something important was unfolding. The sleeping man still snored across his chairs. The couple had stopped arguing and were now embracing. The clock ticked toward 10. "How did you recognize me?" I asked finally. "You weren't even born when I taught your father." "The photos." Debbie pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. Dad has pictures of his kindergarten class. He got copies from the school years ago before they purged the old records. He's shown them to us 100 times, telling stories about each teacher, but especially you. He described you so many times. Your kindness, your smile, the way you wore your hair, and when I saw you sitting here crying, something just clicked. The age was right, and there was something about your face. I know it sounds crazy, but I just knew I had to ask. I stared at the photo on her phone. A classroom from 1980, children arranged in rows, and there I was, 45 years younger, my hair dark instead of white, my face unlined, standing behind a group of 5-year-olds with my hands on the shoulders of 2 children in the front row. I remembered that day, remembered the photographer's instructions, remembered thinking how lucky I was to work with children, to be part of their beginning. One of those children had remembered me, had carried me forward through decades, had built something beautiful partially because of shoes I'd bought at Payless for $19. "I need to tell you something," Debbie said, her voice dropping lower. "Dad's protective, really protective. When I told him what happened to you tonight, what your son and daughter-in-law did, he was furious. I've never heard him that angry." A small flutter of anxiety moved through my chest. I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to go to my parents' house to be left alone. "Mrs. Baker, you deserve so much more than to be left alone." Debbie's jaw set in a way that reminded me suddenly powerfully of the determined little boy I'd once known. What they did to you is wrong. Legally wrong, potentially. Morally wrong, absolutely. And my father, well, he's a lawyer, a very good one. He helps people who've been treated unjustly. "I don't want revenge," I said quickly. "I just want peace." There's a difference between revenge and justice. Debbie looked toward the station entrance. And there's a difference between being left alone and being taken care of. You gave my father a chance when he needed it most. Please let him return the favor. Before I could respond, the station doors opened and a man strode through them with the kind of purposeful energy that made people instinctively move aside. He was tall, well-dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than I'd spent on clothes in the past 5 years. His hair graying at the temples, but his face still holding echoes of the child I'd once known. His eyes scanned the station and locked onto me. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the dingy space. Then he was walking toward me, and I was standing without meaning to, and the years were collapsing into nothing. "Mrs. Baker," he said, and his voice broke on my name. "It's really you, Dale," I whispered. "Little Dale Martinez." "Not so little anymore," he smiled. And there it was. The same sweet smile that used to light up when he understood a new word or finished a puzzle. But yes, it's me. He stood before me, this successful man in his expensive suit, and I saw the 5-year-old boy overlaid on his features like a ghost, the same eyes, the same earnest expression, the same hunger to connect. "I can't believe Debbie found you," he said. "After all these years of looking, and here you are at a bus station on New Year's Eve, running away from people who should have treasured you." The words coming from him, from this child I'd once helped, broke something open inside me. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. "Oh, Mrs. Baker." He stepped forward and with infinite gentleness hugged me. "You don't run anymore. Not from this. Debbie told me everything. Your son, his wife, the nursing home threat, the note you left, all of it." I pulled back, embarrassed. "I'm sorry she bothered you with my problems. I'm just a foolish old woman who stop." The word was firm but kind. "You are not foolish. You are not a bother. You are the woman who changed my entire life, and I've been searching for you so I could thank you properly." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, pressing it into my hand. "This is who I am now because of who you were then." I looked at the card. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Dale R. Martinez, Senior Partner. Martinez and Associates, Immigration and Family Law. "I remember you," I said softly. "I remember the little boy who loved books, who always tried so hard, who never complained, even when I could see his shoes hurt his feet." "You saw me," Dale said simply, "in a world that wanted to ignore my family, that wanted us invisible. You saw me. You spent your own money. Money I know you didn't have extra of because teachers never do, to make sure I had what I needed. Do you know what that taught me?" I shook my head, unable to speak, that I mattered, that strangers could be kind, that the world wasn't just a harsh place where you survived alone. You taught me that helping people wasn't weakness or stupidity. It was strength. It was what separated us from animals. You planted a seed, Mrs. Baker, and it grew into everything I am. Debbie moved beside her father, creating a united front. "We're not letting you get on that bus to hide in some falling down country house. We're not letting you disappear because your son is too blind to see what he's throwing away. I don't want to impose," I started, but Dale cut me off. "Impose." He laughed, but there was steel underneath it. "Mrs. Baker, I'm a millionaire attorney. I have resources you can't imagine. I have connections, I have power, and I'm about to use all of it." Something in his tone sent a shiver through me. Not fear exactly, but anticipation. "What do you mean?" He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Part determination, part righteous anger, part protective love. "I mean, your family is about to find out what happens when you discard someone. I love someone who matters. Someone who changed the entire trajectory of my life with simple kindness. Dale, I don't want trouble. I just want peace. I know Debbie told me." He squeezed my shoulder gently. "And you'll have it. But first, we're going to make sure you're protected. Make sure you have options. Make sure you never have to run away in the middle of the night again because you're afraid of being warehoused somewhere against your will. I have my parents' house I offered weekly. It's not much, but it's mine. We'll check on the house," Dale assured me. "Make sure it's in good condition. Get it fixed up if it needs work. But tonight you're coming home with us. Debbie's mother has been preparing the guest room since Debbie called. We have space. We have resources. And we have 45 years of gratitude to repay. I couldn't possibly. You can. You will." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face from intimidating attorney to the kind boy I once knew. "Please, Mrs. Baker, let me do this. Let me show you what became of the seeds you planted. Let me give you what you gave me all those years ago. Safety, comfort, and the knowledge that someone sees you and thinks you matter." The clock showed 10:30. My bus would arrive in 17 minutes. I looked at the ticket in my hand, then at Dale and Debbie standing before me like guardian angels in a fluorescent-lit bus station. "What about my son?" I whispered. When he finds the note, Dale's expression hardened. "Leave your son to me." Dale's car was nothing like I expected. I'd imagined something flashy, ostentatious, the kind of vehicle that screamed wealth. Instead, it was a modest silver sedan, comfortable but understated, with car seats in the back that told the story of grandchildren. Debbie sat in the back with me, still holding my hand as if afraid I might disappear if she let go. "My wife Sue is going to cry when she meets you," Dale said from the driver's seat, navigating through the quiet New Year's Eve streets. "Fair warning, she's emotional about things like this. Things like what I asked, still dazed by the rapid turn my evening had taken. Miracles answered prayers, full circle moments." He glanced at me in the rear-view mirror. I've told her about you so many times she feels like she knows you. The teacher who bought me shoes. The teacher who saw a scared little immigrant kid and decided he deserved dignity. The word dignity hit me hard. It was what had been stripped from me so gradually in Mason's house that I hadn't even noticed it happening. The small humiliations, the dismissals, the way Jacqueline would talk about me in third person while I was standing right there. We need to think about what's best for her, she'd say, as if I couldn't think for myself, as if at 75 I'd lost the right to make my own decisions. I still can't believe you remembered me, I said softly. It's been so long, Mrs. Baker. You don't forget the person who changes your life. Dale's voice was firm. My parents. They worked so hard, but there was never enough money, never enough time. They loved me desperately, but they were drowning trying to survive in a new country. And then there was you, making sure I had what I needed, treating me like I mattered just as much as the kids whose parents were doctors and lawyers. You did matter. All my students mattered. But you proved it. You didn't just say nice things. You acted. You spent money you probably needed for your own bills to buy a kid you barely knew a pair of shoes. He paused at a red light, the car idling in the empty intersection. Do you know what I did when I made my first million? I shook my head. I tried to find you. I wanted to pay you back. Wanted to show you what had become of that scared 5-year-old. I hired investigators, called the school district, searched every database I could access. Nothing. It was like you'd vanished. The light changed and we moved forward into a neighborhood that grew progressively nicer. The houses larger, the yards more manicured. I never stopped looking. Every year on my birthday, I'd spend a few hours searching again. Different search terms, different approaches. I found other teachers from those years, but never you. I moved after I retired, I explained. Sold my little house to help Mason with his down payment. He said it made sense for us to pull resources, that I'd be happier living with family than alone in my old neighborhood. Debbie made a sound beside me, something between a sigh and a growl. Let me guess. You gave him the money and then he treated your presence like a favor he was doing you. The accuracy stung. He's my son. I wanted to help. Helping is supposed to go both ways, Debbie said quietly. It's supposed to be mutual, respectful, not what they did to you tonight. We pulled into a circular driveway before a beautiful 2-story home. Warm light spilling from the windows. It looked like something from a magazine. Elegant, but welcoming. The kind of house that had hosted many family dinners and children's birthday parties. The kind of house where people were loved. The front door opened before we'd even exited the car and a woman rushed out. She was about my age with silver hair and a face that radiated warmth. She wore an apron over her dress and her eyes were already wet with tears. "Sue," Dale said, coming around to help me out of the car. "This is Mrs. Baker." Sue pressed her hands to her mouth, studying my face as if memorizing it. Then she stepped forward and embraced me with the fierce tenderness of someone greeting a long-lost relative. "Welcome home," she whispered. "Oh, Mrs. Baker, welcome home." I couldn't help it. I started crying again. This woman, this stranger, was hugging me with more warmth than my own daughter-in-law had shown in years. The contrast was unbearable and healing all at once. "Come inside," Sue said, keeping one arm around my shoulders. "You must be exhausted, hungry." When Debbie called, I started making Paulette Dale's favorite comfort food. There's plenty. The house's interior was even more beautiful than its exterior. Warm colors, comfortable furniture, photographs covering every surface. A Christmas tree still glowed in the corner of the living room. Presents underneath it, waiting for morning. The house smelled like home. Cooking food, pine needles, that indefinable scent of a place where people lived and loved and belonged. "The guest room is ready," Sue said, guiding me toward a staircase. Fresh sheets, clean towels, everything you need. But first, let's get some food in you. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks." She wasn't wrong. Jacqueline's cooking was all kale and quinoa. Clean eating that left me hungry an hour later. She'd made comments about my weight, suggested I didn't need heavy foods at my age. I'd learned to keep crackers in my room for when the hunger got too bad at night. The kitchen was enormous and immaculate, with a large wooden table that could seat 10. Sue sat me down in a cushioned chair and immediately began ladelling soup into a bowl. Rich, fragrant pole with hominy and pork and all the toppings on the side. A basket of fresh tortillas appeared still warm. A glass of water with lemon. "Eat," she commanded gently. "Please, and tell us everything." So I did. Between bites of the best soup I'd tasted in years, I told them the whole story. Not just tonight, but the past few years. How I'd moved in with Mason and Jacqueline after my husband's death. How gradually I'd been relegated to smaller and smaller spaces in their lives. The separate meals, the comments about my outdated clothes and ideas, the way Jacqueline's friends would look through me as if I were furniture. The grandsons who'd grown too busy for their grandmother, who cringed when I tried to hug them. I told them about the holiday I'd spent alone in my room because they were having a couples-only dinner party. About the time Jacqueline had thrown away my favorite cardigan because it was ratty even though my mother had knitted it. About overhearing Mason tell a friend that having me there was challenging, but they were making it work. Dale's expression grew darker with every detail. Sue kept refilling my bowl, kept touching my hand, kept making small sounds of sympathy and outrage. And tonight, I finished. Jacqueline just said it. "We're putting you in a nursing home. You're too old to be useful." Just like that. Like I was a broken appliance they were replacing. What did Mason say? Dale asked, his lawyer's mind already working. He agreed. He said it was for the best, that I'd have people my own age. I set down my spoon, my appetite fading with the memory. He wouldn't look at me, his own mother, and he couldn't even look at me while he agreed to put me away. "The note you left," Debbie interjected. "Did you say where you were going?" "No, just that I wouldn't be a burden anymore and they shouldn't look for me." Dale pulled out his phone. "What's Mason's number?" Why alarm shot through me. "Dale, please. I don't want to cause problems. I just want to be left alone." Mrs. Baker, Dale said, his voice gentle but immovable. "You're not causing problems. You're the victim of elder abuse, emotional abuse, financial exploitation, possibly illegal coercion. And your son needs to understand that there are consequences for treating people this way, especially his own mother. I don't want to fight with him. He's all I have." "No." Sue reached across the table and gripped my hands. "You have us now. You have people who see your value, who understand what you deserve. You're not alone anymore." "But he's my son," I whispered. "I raised him. I sacrificed for him. How did it come to this?" Dale's expression softened. "Sometimes people take advantage of the ones who love them most because they know they can. They know you'll forgive them, make excuses for them, sacrifice for them. It doesn't make it right. It makes it worse." He was right, and I knew it. I'd been making excuses for Mason for years. He's busy. He's stressed. Jacqueline is demanding. The boys take up all his time. Every slight, every dismissal, every moment of invisibility. I'd explained it away because the alternative was too painful to accept. My son didn't value me. Maybe he'd stopped valuing me years ago. So gradually, I hadn't noticed until I was completely erased. I need to check on the house first. I said, trying to regain some control over the situation. "My parents' place. It's been empty for 8 years. It's probably falling apart. We'll send someone tomorrow," Dale assured me. "I have contractors I trust. They'll assess the damage, give us an estimate for repairs. If you want to eventually live there, we'll make it habitable. If not, we'll help you sell it. Either way, you have options. Options. When was the last time I'd had options tonight? Sue said firmly. You rest. You've been through a trauma. Tomorrow we start figuring out the next steps, but tonight you sleep in a comfortable bed in a house where you're wanted. Debbie had been quiet, but now she spoke up. Mom's right. And Mrs. Baker, my kids are going to be here tomorrow morning. They're 7 and 9, and they're going to want to meet their grandma's hero. Be prepared for questions and hugs and probably requests for stories about what their grandfather was like as a kid. The image made me smile despite everything. Children. I'd always loved children, had spent my whole career with them. Mason's boys had outgrown needing me. But maybe these grandchildren I'd never met might still have room in their lives for an old woman's stories. I'd like that, I admitted. It settled then. Dale stood. Sue, why don't you show Mrs. Baker to her room? Debbie and I need to make some calls. Calls? I asked nervously. It's almost 11 on New Year's Eve, Mrs. Baker Dale said, and his smile was sharp. One advantage of being a successful attorney is that people answer when I call regardless of the hour. Your son left you a noteworthy crisis on New Year's Eve. I think he can handle a phone call. What are you going to do right now? Just let him know you're safe, that you're with friends, that running away in tears because your family discarded you is not a situation that's going to be ignored or swept under the rug. His expression hardened. And then first thing Monday morning, we're going to have a conversation about elder rights financial exploitation and what happens when you try to institutionalize someone without proper legal authority or cause. I don't want to sue my own son, I said desperately. You won't have to. Trust me. Dale's smile was confident. A letter from my law firm on the right letterhead tends to inspire immediate cooperation. Sometimes people need to understand the legal implications of their actions before they reconsider their choices. Sue took my arm gently. Come on, let the lawyers do lawyer things. You need rest. She led me upstairs to a beautiful guest room with a queen bed, soft pillows, and windows that overlooked a garden even in winter. The room smelled like lavender. A new toothbrush and toiletries waited in the attached bathroom. Clean towels hung on the rack. If you need anything, Sue said anything at all. Our room is just down the hall. Don't hesitate. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, my worn suitcase looking shabby against the room's elegance. Through the floor, I could hear Dale's voice, firm and professional, making his calls. Somewhere across the city, Mason and Jacqueline were probably still at their party, maybe not even having noticed I was gone yet, maybe not caring when they did. But here in this house with these people who owed me nothing and yet offered everything, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and for a disorienting moment couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came flooding back. The bus station, Debbie Dale, this beautiful house that had welcomed me when my own family had discarded me. The bedside clock read 8:47 a.m., New Year's Day. I'd slept nearly 10 hours, the deepest sleep I'd had in months. At Mason's house, I'd trained myself to wake early, to be quiet, to make myself invisible during the family's morning routine. Here, no one had woken me. No one had needed me to disappear. A soft knock came at the door. Mrs. Baker, are you awake? Sue's voice, gentle and unhurried. Yes, come in. She entered carrying a tray. Coffee, fresh fruit toast with butter and jam. I thought you might like breakfast in bed. It's a holiday after all. New Year's Day. A new beginning. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. You don't have to serve me. I can come downstairs. I know I don't have to. I want to. Sue set the tray on my lap and settled into the chair by the window. Dale's been on the phone since 7. He called your son last night around 11:30. My stomach clenched. What happened? Mason didn't answer. Dale left a message identifying himself as your attorney and stating that you were safe and under his protection. He indicated that there would be further communication forthcoming regarding your situation. Sue's expression was carefully neutral. Mason called back at 7:15 this morning. Dale's been on the phone with him for over an hour. Is he angry? Mason? I think panicked would be more accurate. Sue folded her hands in her lap. When a senior partner from one of the state's most prestigious law firms calls and says he's representing your mother, it tends to inspire concern, especially when you were planning to institutionalize that mother against her will. I didn't want this, I said quietly. I didn't want lawyers and threats and fighting. What did you want? The question stopped me. What had I wanted? Not the bus station, not running away in tears, not hiding in a country house that was probably uninhabitable. I'd wanted what I'd had before, a family that loved me, a place where I belonged, respect and dignity in my old age. I wanted to matter, I finally whispered. I wanted my son to see me as something other than a burden. Then that's what we're going to get you. Sue reached over and squeezed my hand. Not through revenge, not through cruelty, but through boundaries and consequences. Sometimes people need to understand what they've lost before they appreciate what they had. Downstairs, I could hear children's voices, excited, high-pitched, asking questions. Debbie's kids. I realized the grandchildren who wanted to meet their grandfather's kindergarten teacher. They've been asking about you since they woke up, Sue said with a smile. Debbie told them the story last night before bed, how their pop searched for you for years, how you changed his life with simple kindness. My grandson, Carlos, said you must be a superhero. The idea of being anyone's superhero at 75 was absurd and touching in equal measure. I just bought a little boy some shoes. You keep saying that like it diminishes what you did. It doesn't. Sue stood. Get dressed, have your breakfast. Come down when you're ready, no rush. This is your home for as long as you need it. After she left, I ate slowly, savoring the good coffee and the fresh strawberries. Through the window, I could see the garden Sue had mentioned dormant now in winter, but clearly well-tended with paths and benches and bird feeders. A place designed for peace, for reflection, for life. My phone, which I'd barely charged in weeks, sat on the nightstand. I turned it off last night, unable to face whatever messages might come. Now I powered it on my heart racing. 17 missed calls, 12 voicemails, 23 text messages. Most were from Mason. The earliest ones, time-stamped around midnight, were confused. Mom, where are you? Your note wasn't clear. Then concerned. Mom, please call. We need to talk about this. Then after Dale's call, panicked. Mom, who is this lawyer? What's going on? Call me immediately. Jacqueline had sent exactly 2 messages. This is very dramatic and unnecessary, and you're embarrassing Mason. Even now, even in crisis, she was thinking about appearances, about embarrassment. Not about the 75-year-old woman who'd fled into the night rather than be warehoused in a facility she didn't choose. I didn't respond to any of them. I wasn't ready. Instead, I dressed in the same clothes from yesterday. I hadn't packed much and made my way downstairs. The house was alive with activity. Dale sat at the kitchen table still in his pajamas, and Robe, his phone and laptop in front of him. Papers spread across the surface. Debbie was making pancakes while 2 children sat at the counter, swinging their legs and chattering. They saw me first. Is that her? The boy asked, his voice odd. Is that Papa's teacher? That's her. Debbie confirmed. Mrs. Baker, these are my monsters. Carlos is 9 and Maria is 7. Carlos had Dale's eyes and his earnest expression. Maria had Debbie's smile and an impressive collection of clips in her curly hair. They both scrambled down from their stools and approached me with the unself-conscious curiosity of children. "You're really old," Maria observed. Maria Debbie warned, but I laughed. "I really am 75 years old. Pop says you're the nicest person he ever met. Carlos said he says you saved his life. I think your pop is exaggerating a bit." "He doesn't exaggerate," Carlos said seriously. "He's a lawyer. He says lawyers have to tell the truth." Dale looked up from his papers and grinned. "I've created a monster. He quotes me constantly." He stood and came over, kissing the top of my head in a gesture so paternal it made my throat tight. "Good morning, Mrs. Baker. How did you sleep? Better than I have in years." "Good. Come sit. We have things to discuss, but first pancakes. Debbie makes the best pancakes in the Western Hemisphere." I sat, and within minutes, a plate of fluffy pancakes appeared in front of me with real maple syrup and butter. The children peppered me with questions between bites. What was their pop like as a little boy? Did he get in trouble? What was his favorite subject? Did I have other students I remembered? I answered them all, watching Dale's face as I shared memories of his younger self, the way he'd helped other children who were struggling, the time he'd found a lost library book and walked 6 blocks out of his way to return it, how he'd always said, "Please" and "thank you." That careful politeness of a child taught to respect authority. "You taught him well," I told the table at large. "His parents did a wonderful job." "They did," Dale agreed. "And so did you. You were part of that village everyone talks about." He glanced at his watch. "Carlos, Maria, why don't you go play in the family room? I need to talk to Mrs. Baker about grown-up things." The children departed reluctantly, and the atmosphere shifted. Dale pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. "Mason called back 3 times this morning," he began. "I've made it clear that all communication needs to go through me until further notice. He's distressed. I should call him. I said he's worried. He's worried about the legal implications of his actions." Dale corrected gently. "There's a difference. Mrs. Baker, I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. This isn't about punishing your son. It's about protecting you and understanding what we're dealing with." I nodded, my appetite fading. "The money from your parents' house sale. How much was it? And where did it go?" "About $65,000. Mason said we'd use it for the down payment on their house. He said it made sense to pull our resources since I'd be living there. Did he put your name on the deed? I don't know. He handled all the paperwork." Dale made a note. "We'll find out. What about your Social Security? It goes into a joint account. Mason set it up. He said it was easier for managing household expenses. Do you have access to that account? Can you withdraw money when you need it?" I hesitated. "I have a debit card, but Jacqueline monitors the spending. She said I needed to be mindful about purchases, that we were all sharing resources. Did you agree to this arrangement in writing?" "Number Mason just said it made sense that I shouldn't worry about finances at my age." Dale's jaw tightened. "And the nursing home they mentioned, had you seen it? Did you agree to be evaluated or placed there?" "No. Jacqueline just announced it last night. Said they'd already found a place, that I was too old to be useful." "Did she say this in front of witnesses?" "Just Mason." He agreed with her. Dale wrote for a long moment. When he looked up, his expression was serious. "Mrs. Baker, what I'm about to tell you might be difficult to hear. Based on what you've described, your son and daughter-in-law may have committed several violations of elder law, potential financial exploitation, given that you contributed significant assets without clear agreement or return emotional abuse, through isolation and denigration, and attempted unlawful institutionalization. You cannot be placed in a nursing home against your will without a court order which requires proof that you're unable to care for yourself." The words felt like stones dropping into water, creating ripples I couldn't control. "You're saying my son broke the law. I'm saying there are concerning patterns that warrant investigation. But here's what matters most. You have rights, legal rights that don't disappear because you're 75 or because you're someone's mother. You have the right to control your own finances, make your own medical decisions, and live where you choose. What do you want me to do right now? Nothing. Let me handle this. I'm drafting a letter to Mason and Jacqueline outlining the legal issues with their behavior and our concerns about financial exploitation. I'm also requesting a full accounting of your assets, the money from your parents' house, your Social Security payments, any other funds they may be controlling. Will they have to give it back? The thought felt greedy small. If they've misused your money, yes. But more importantly, we're establishing boundaries. They need to understand that you're not alone and unprotected, that there are people watching people who care, people who will hold them accountable. Sue had been listening quietly from the stove. Now she spoke. The goal isn't to destroy their lives, Mrs. Baker. It's to wake them up. Sometimes people need to face consequences before they can change. But what if they hate me? What if this ruins everything? Dale leaned forward, his eyes intense. What exactly would it ruin a relationship where you're invisible, where you're treated as a burden, where your own son agrees to institutionalize you against your will? His voice softened. You deserve better than scraps of affection. You deserve to be valued, respected, celebrated. If enforcing boundaries ruins a relationship, that relationship was already broken. The truth of his words settled over me like a weight. I'd been so focused on keeping the peace, on not causing trouble, on being grateful for whatever small mercies were thrown my way, that I'd forgotten I deserved more. Okay, I whispered. Do what you think is best. I will. But Mrs. Baker, this is your decision. I'm your advocate, not your controller. If at any point you want me to stop, I stop. If you want to reconcile with Mason on your terms, we facilitate that. You're in charge of your own life now. That's the whole point. Debbie came over and hugged me from behind. And while Dad does the legal stuff, we're going to check on your country house, get it assessed, see what it needs, make sure you have options. Whether that's living there, selling it, or keeping it as a backup plan. I can't ask you to do all this. You're not asking, Sue said firmly. We're offering. There's a difference. Through the window, I could see Carlos and Maria playing in the backyard, their laughter carrying through the glass. A normal New Year's Day full of family and joy and belonging. I thought I was running away to nothing. Instead, I'd run straight into something I'd lost years ago without realizing it. A family. Not the one I'd been born into or had created, but the one I'd earned decades ago with a simple act of kindness to a scared little boy who'd never forgotten. By Monday morning, Dale's law office had become my unexpected command center. The building itself was impressive. Glass and steel downtown with Martinez and Associates occupying the entire 15th floor. Dale's secretary, a sharp-eyed woman named Nancy, who looked like she could organize a military coup before lunch, had greeted me like visiting royalty. Mrs. Baker, we've heard so much about you, she'd said, shaking my hand warmly. Mr. Martinez talks about you constantly. You're a legend around here. A legend me. A retired kindergarten teacher who'd spent the last few years being invisible. Now I sat in Dale's office, a space that managed to be both professional and personal. Law books lined the walls, but interspersed among them were photographs. Dale with Sue on their wedding day, Debbie and her brother as children, the grandkids in various stages of growth. And there, on his desk in a silver frame, was the kindergarten class photo from 1980. Me young and smiling, surrounded by 5-year-olds with gap-toothed grins. He'd kept it on his desk all these years. Dale sat across from me now, reviewing documents. With the focused intensity I was learning was his professional hallmark. The weekend had been a whirlwind of activity. On Saturday, we'd driven to my parents' house, a 2-hour trip through increasingly rural landscape, until we reached the small town of Millbrook. The house had been better than I'd feared, but worse than I'd hoped. The structure was sound, the roof intact, but years of emptiness had taken their toll. Peeling paint, overgrown yard windows that needed replacing. Dale's contractor, a kind man named Tom, who'd arrived within an hour of our call, had walked through with a practiced eye. Solid bones, he'd pronounced. Needs cosmetic work, some electrical updating, new appliances. Maybe $20,000 to make it really nice. $40,000 if you want it perfect. $20,000 I didn't have. But Dale had simply nodded and told Tom to send him an estimate for the full renovation. When I'd protested, he'd held up a hand. Consider it an investment. We fix it up and then you have options. Live there, rent it out, sell it for a better price. Either way, you're not trapped. He'd smiled. Besides, I owe you at least 40 pairs of shoes worth of renovation. We're barely even. Now back in his office, he slid a document across the desk. This is the letter going to Mason and Jacqueline today via certified mail and email. I want you to read it before I send it. I picked up the pages, my hands trembling slightly. The letter, head alone, was intimidating. Martinez and Associates with a list of partners and specialties that took up half the first page. The letter itself was formal, precise, and devastating. It outlined everything. My contribution to their house purchased the control they'd exercised over my finances, the isolation and emotional abuse, the attempted institutionalization without legal authority. It requested a full accounting of my assets within 10 business days. It noted that failure to comply would result in further legal action, including potential claims for financial exploitation and elder abuse. The final paragraph made my breath catch. Mrs. Baker is currently residing in a safe location with adequate support and legal representation. She is exercising her right to control her own finances, make her own medical decisions, and determine her own living arrangements. Any attempt to contact her directly, harass her, or interfere with her autonomy will be documented and may result in the filing of a restraining order. All communication must go through this office. It's so harsh, I said quietly. It's protective, Dale corrected, and it's necessary. Mason called 17 times this weekend. Jacqueline sent you 12 text messages, each one more manipulative than the last. They need to understand that this isn't a family squabble they can smooth over. This is a legal matter with real consequences. What did Jacqueline's messages say? Dale's expression darkened. Do you really want to know? Yes. He pulled out his phone and read them aloud, his voice flat. You're being ridiculous. You're going to regret this dramatic behavior. Mason is devastated that you choose strangers over your own family. Think about what this is doing to your grandsons. This lawyer is just using you. You're making a fool of yourself. We were trying to help you, and this is how you repay us. Each message was a small knife designed to cut, to make me doubt, to pull me back into the pattern where I apologized for existing and grateful for scraps. She's trying to make me feel guilty. I said, yes, it's a classic manipulation tactic. Make the victim responsible for the abuser's feelings. Dale set down his phone. Mrs. Baker, do you want to respond to her? No, not yet. I straightened my shoulders. Send the letter. He smiled, pride evident in his expression. That's my teacher, the one who taught a scared little boy that he deserved dignity. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Nancy, please send the Martinez letter via all channels. Certified mail, email, and courier service. Right away, Mr. Martinez. The deed was done. There was no taking it back now. What happens next, I asked. They'll receive it by this afternoon. They'll panic. They'll probably consult a lawyer who will tell them they're in a precarious position legally. Then they'll either comply with our requests or try to negotiate. Dale leaned back in his chair. My guess Mason will want to talk. He'll want to explain to justify to make you understand why they did what they did. He'll probably blame Jacqueline, say he was just going along to keep the peace. How do you know? Because I've seen this pattern 100 times in family law cases. The person with less power in the relationship in this case, Mason, will try to distance themselves from the worst actions while still minimizing the harm. Dale's eyes were kind but firm. The question is, what do you want out of this? I'd been thinking about that all weekend. What did I want? An apology, my money, back my son to suddenly transform into someone who valued me, a relationship that had been broken for years to magically heal. I want to know that I'm safe, I said slowly, that I won't be forced into a nursing home, that I have control over my own life and money, that I'm not dependent on people who see me as a burden, all achievable goals. What about the relationship with Mason? I don't know. Tears pricked my eyes. He's my son. I love him, but I don't know if I can trust him anymore, and I don't know if that can be fixed. It might not be, Dale said gently. Some relationships don't survive betrayal even when there's love involved, and that's okay. You're allowed to protect yourself even from your own children. Before I could respond, NY's voice came through the intercom. Mr. Martinez, you have a call on line 3. A Mason Turner. He says it's urgent regarding his mother. Dale raised an eyebrow at me. That was faster than I expected. Want me to take it? I nodded, my heart hammering. He pressed the speaker button. This is Dale Martinez. Where is my mother? Mason's voice filled the office, high-pitched with stress. I want to talk to her now. Mr. Turner, as outlined in the letter you'll be receiving today, all communication regarding your mother goes through this office. Mrs. Baker is safe and has chosen not to speak with you at this time. This is insane. You can't keep her from me. I'm her son. I'm not keeping her from you. She's choosing not to engage. There's a difference. Who are you really? What's your angle here? Are you trying to steal her money? Because I can report you to the Bar Association, Mr. Turner. Dale's voice went ice cold. I suggest you stop talking immediately. You're on speakerphone and you're accusing a senior partner of a major law firm of elder exploitation, while simultaneously demonstrating exactly the kind of controlling behavior that necessitated Mrs. Baker seeking legal representation. Would you like to continue making threats, or would you like to have a productive conversation? Silence. Then in a smaller voice, I just want to talk to my mother. Why? Because she's my mother. Because I'm worried about her. Because this whole thing is crazy. She left a note, disappeared, and now there's a lawyer saying, we abused her. Did you abuse her, Mr. Turner? No. We were trying to help. The nursing home was going to be nice. A good place where she'd have activities and people her own age. Did your mother agree to be placed in a nursing home? Pause. Jacqueline thought it was best. I didn't ask what Jacqueline thought. Did your mother, a competent adult with full mental faculties, agree to this placement? We didn't exactly ask her permission. We were going to tell her it was already arranged. So you were planning to institutionalize a competent adult against her will. That's not... It wasn't like that. She's old. She gets confused sometimes. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I'm not confused, Mason. The shock in his voice was palpable. Mom. Mom, is that you? Yes, it's me, your mother. The one who's apparently too confused to make her own decisions but somehow managed to find her way to a bus station, connect with old friends, and hire a lawyer. Mom, please. This is all a misunderstanding. Come home. We'll talk about this. Home. The word felt bitter on my tongue. The home where I was told I was too old to be useful, where I ate meals alone in my room, where my own daughter-in-law threw away my mother's cardigan because it offended her aesthetic. I didn't know about the cardigan. Mom, Jacqueline can be difficult, but we care about you. You care about me. I repeated the words, testing them. When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? Really asked and waited for an answer? When was the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about what I could do for you or how I could be less inconvenient? That's not fair, isn't it, Mason? You stood there on New Year's Eve and agreed when your wife said I was too old to be useful. You watched me pack my things and you didn't stop her. You didn't defend me. You didn't even look at me. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have handled it differently. You should have handled it differently, I echoed. That's your apology. Not I was wrong. Not I hurt you. Just I should have handled it differently. Like the problem was your method, not your entire approach to treating your mother like a burden you needed to dispose of. Mom, please, Mr. Turner Dale interjected smoothly. This conversation is becoming unproductive. As outlined in the letter, we're requesting a full financial accounting within 10 business days. We need documentation of how Mrs. Baker's money has been used, including the proceeds from her parents' house sale and her Social Security payments. We'll also need to see the deed to your property to verify whether her name was added as agreed. You think I stole from my own mother? I think we need documentation. If everything was handled appropriately, the accounting will show that. If not, Dale let the implication hang. This is blackmail. This is law. Mr. Turner, your mother contributed significant assets to your household with the understanding she'd be cared for. Instead, she was isolated, controlled, and threatened with institutionalization. Now we're verifying that her financial contributions were handled legally and ethically. That's not blackmail. That's due diligence. I could hear Mason breathing heavily on the other end. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder, defensive. Fine. You want an accounting? You'll get an accounting. And when you see that everything was handled properly, when you see that we used her money for household expenses, like we agreed, maybe she'll realize she's being manipulated by some lawyer with a savior complex. Mr. Turner Dale began, but Mason cut him off. No, I'm done. You want to do this the hard way, fine. But Mom, his voice shifted, became pleading. Mom, when you realize this is all a mistake, when you see that we were trying to help you, I hope you'll remember who your real family is. Because these people, they don't love you like I do. They can't. I'm your son. The line went dead. I sat in the sudden silence, shaking. Dale reached across the desk and took my hand. You did well, he said quietly. You set boundaries. You asked hard questions. You didn't let him manipulate you into backing down. He sounded so hurt. He sounded cornered. There's a difference. Dale squeezed my hand. Mrs. Baker, guilt is a powerful tool. He's using it because it's worked on you before. But you don't owe him absolution just because he's your son. He has to earn it back through changed behavior, not through making you feel responsible for his emotions. I know you're right. But it still hurts. Of course it does. He's your child. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for him is to hold firm to show him that actions have consequences, that people can't be treated carelessly without losing them. Sue had said something similar over the weekend. Sometimes people need to lose something before they learn to value it. Maybe I was teaching Mason one final lesson that mothers weren't infinitely patient, infinitely forgiving, infinitely available to be hurt, that even unconditional love had conditions, and he'd crossed them. The question was whether he'd learn it or whether this was simply the end of a relationship that had been dying for years. Either way, I wasn't going back. Not to that house, not to that life, not to being invisible and apologetic and grateful for neglect disguised as care. I was done disappearing. 3 months had passed since that New Year's Eve, and I was standing in the kitchen of my parents' house, my house now watching the morning sun stream through new windows. The renovation was complete. fresh white paint on the walls, refinished hardwood floors, a kitchen with modern appliances that I was still learning to use. The garden had been cleared and replanted, the porch rebuilt, the whole place transformed from a decaying memory into something alive again. Tom the contractor had done beautiful work. More than that, he'd been patient with me, explaining choices, asking my opinion, treating the project like it mattered because it mattered to me. Dale had paid for everything despite my protests, calling it 45 years of compound interest on a pair of shoes. I'd moved in 2 weeks ago, and every morning I woke up with the same sense of wonder. This was mine, my space, my choices, my life. No one to ask permission from, no one monitoring my spending or judging my decisions or making me feel like an inconvenient guest in my own existence. The country house had become something I hadn't expected, a sanctuary, a place where I could breathe. I wasn't alone, though. The community of Millbrook had welcomed me with the casual warmth of small towns everywhere. My neighbor Dorothy was 82 and had been bringing me baked goods and gossip since the day I'd arrived. The local library needed volunteers, and the director had practically wept with joy when I'd mentioned my teaching background. I was reading to children twice a week now, the same way I had for 37 years, and it felt like coming home. Dale and Sue visited every Sunday, often bringing Debbie and the grandchildren. Carlos and Maria had adopted me as an honorary grandmother, sharing their week's adventures and asking for stories about the old days. They'd started calling me Grandma Baker, and I'd stopped correcting them. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Sue. Sunday dinner at 4. Don't forget Dale has news. News that could mean many things. Over the past 3 months, there had been a lot of news. Mason had provided the financial accounting Dale requested. It had revealed exactly what we'd suspected. My $65,000 had gone into the house down payment, but my name had never been added to the deed. My Social Security payments had been deposited into a joint account that I theoretically had access to, but the record showed that 90% of it had been spent on household expenses that primarily benefited Mason and Jacqueline. New furniture for rooms I wasn't allowed in, vacations I wasn't invited on, private school tuition for grandsons who barely acknowledged my existence. Dale had presented all of this in a follow-up letter along with a proposal. Mason and Jacqueline could either return the full amount of my financial contribution with interest, or we would pursue legal action for elder financial exploitation. They'd had 2 weeks to decide. They'd chosen to pay. $78,000 had been transferred into a new account in my name only. My original contribution plus conservative interest. It had arrived with no apology, no explanation, just a email from their lawyer confirming the transaction. I hadn't heard directly from Mason since that phone call in Dale's office. He'd tried a few times, calls, texts, even a letter delivered through his attorney. All of them variations on the same theme. I was overreacting. They'd meant well. I was being influenced by people who didn't really care about me. Wouldn't I please come home so we could work this out as a family? None of them included an actual apology. None of them acknowledged what they'd done wrong, only that I was upset about it. None of them asked what I wanted or needed, only demanded that I forgive and forget and return to being manageable. I'd responded to the letter, the only communication I'd had with him in 3 months. I'd kept it brief. Mason, I love you. You're my son, and nothing will change that. But love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. When you're ready to truly apologize, not for how you handled things, but for what you did. When you're ready to hear how you hurt me without making excuses or blaming others, I'll be here. Until then, I need space to heal. Mom, I didn't know if he'd understood. I didn't know if he was capable of understanding. Jacqueline had filed for divorce 6 weeks ago, and according to Debbie's discreet inquiries, the split was acrimonious. Mason had moved into an apartment. The big house was on the market. Part of me ate she for him. Part of me wondered if losing everything, his wife, his house, his mother's unquestioning support, might finally wake him up. Part of me had accepted that it might not matter either way. I was building a life that didn't depend on his recognition or approval. That was its own kind of freedom. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, but visitors had become more common as I'd settled into the community. Probably Dorothy with another coffee cake. I opened the door and froze. Mason stood on my porch looking nothing like the confident man who'd agreed to institutionalize me 3 months ago. He'd lost weight. His clothes were rumpled. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion and something that might have been shame. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. "Then how did you find me?" "It wasn't hard. Small-town renovation cruise talk. I've known where you were for a month. I didn't know if I should come." "Does Dale know you're here? No. Should I have asked permission to visit my own mother?" The defensiveness in his tone was automatic familiar, but then he caught himself, his shoulders sagging. "I'm sorry. That came out wrong. No, I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't sure you'd see me if I called first. He was probably right. You should come in." He followed me into the living room, looking around at the renovated space with an expression I couldn't quite read. "It looks good. Really good. Your parents would be happy to see it like this. Dale's contractor did the work." "Dale?" Mason's jaw tightened. "The miracle lawyer who swooped in to save you from your terrible family? Mason, I know. I'm not here to fight." He sat down on the couch without being invited, his hands clasped between his knees. "I'm here because Jacqueline's gone. The house is being sold and my sons won't talk to me. Do you know what Tyler said? My own 17-year-old son. He said, 'You threw Grandma away like garbage. Why should I treat you any better?'" The words hung in the air. I sat down across from him, maintaining distance. "I've lost everything." Mason continued, his voice breaking. "My marriage, my home, my kids' respect. And the whole time, all I could think was that you tried to warn me. Not with words. You never said anything against Jacqueline, but with your face, with how quiet you got, with how you made yourself smaller and smaller, trying not to be in the way. I didn't want to cause problems." "That's the thing, Mom. You never caused problems. You just disappeared, and I let you. I watched you disappear and told myself it was fine, that you were fine, that we were all doing the best we could." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry. The apology I'd been waiting for. Not sorry you're upset, or sorry it happened this way, but sorry I did this. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from Jacqueline." He continued, "I'm sorry I let her make you feel unwelcome in our home. I'm sorry I took your money and never put your name on the deed. I'm sorry I stood there on New Year's Eve and agreed when she said you were too old to be useful. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to run away in the middle of the night rather than fight for your place in our family." Each apology landed like a stone in still water, creating ripples. "I'm sorry I forgot who you were," he whispered. "The mom who raised me alone after Dad died, who worked 2 jobs so I could play baseball, who sat up with me through every nightmare, every illness, every heartbreak, who sacrificed everything to give me opportunities. And I repaid you by treating you like an inconvenience." I was crying now, too. Years of hurt and loneliness and rejection pouring out. "I don't know if you can forgive me," Mason said. "I don't know if I deserve it, but I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see what I lost. And I'm sorry." "Why now?" I asked. "Why did it take losing everything for you to see me? I don't know. Maybe because as long as I had everything else, I could pretend it was okay that you were okay. that I was a good person who just made some mistakes. He wiped his eyes. But when it all fell apart, when I was sitting alone in my apartment with my kids refusing my calls, I realized the one person who'd always been there for me was the one I'd thrown away. And maybe I deserved to be alone. I never wanted you to be alone. I wanted you to value me. I know. I know that now. He took a shaky breath. I'm not asking you to forgive me today. I'm not asking to move in or to go back to how things were. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did wrong, that it wasn't your fault, that you deserved so much better than what I gave you. We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, birds sang in the garden. A car passed on the quiet street. The house creaked and settled around us, a sound I'd come to love. I got a job, Mason said finally, teaching high school math. It doesn't pay what the corporate job did, but it's something that matters. I thought about what you always said. That teaching was the most important work there was. I never really understood until now. Your teaching started last week. It's humbling. The kids don't care about my resume or my connections. They just want someone who shows up and cares about them. He smiled sadly. Kind of like you wanted. I'm glad. I think it'll be good for you. I'm seeing a therapist too, trying to understand how I became someone who could treat his own mother that way. She says, I learned to prioritize status and appearance over relationships, that I married someone who reinforced those values and lost myself in the process. Jacqueline wasn't entirely to blame. No, but I let her lead. I went along because it was easier than standing up for what was right. I chose my wife's approval over my mother's dignity. He looked at me directly. That was my choice, Mom. Mine, and I have to live with it. The Mason sitting in front of me seemed like a different person from the one who'd stood silent while Jacqueline dismantled my worth. Maybe losing everything had cracked him open. Maybe he was finally seeing clearly. Or maybe he was just lonely and desperate, and this would pass when he rebuilt his life. I didn't know, and that was okay. I didn't have to know. I'm not ready to have you back in my life fully, I said carefully. I need time. I need to see sustained change, not just crisis-driven apologies. I understand, but I'm willing to try slowly. Maybe we could have coffee, sometimes talk, get to know each other again as the people we are now, not who we used to be. Hope flickered across his face. Really, really. But Mason, if you ever make me feel small again, if you ever treat me like a burden or an inconvenience, I'm done. I won't give you another chance. I've built a life here that doesn't require your approval or presence, and I'll protect it. I understand. And Mom, thank you for not giving up on me completely. I'm your mother. I'll never give up on you, but I'll also never let you treat me that way again. There's a difference. He nodded, standing to leave. At the door, he paused. The house Dale arranged for you. It's beautiful. You deserve beautiful things. I do, I agreed. I'm learning that. After he left, I called Dale. Mason was here, I said when he answered. Are you okay? Do you need me to come? I'm fine. He apologized. Actually, apologized. Not the fake kind. I told him I needed time but was willing to try. Dale was quiet for a moment. How do you feel? Hopeful, cautious, sad about what we lost. Grateful for what I found. I looked around my sunny kitchen, my beautiful renovated home, my new life. Mostly grateful. You've come a long way from the woman crying at the bus station. We both have. That scared little boy in 2 small shoes became someone who changes lives for a living. And the teacher who bought him those shoes learned that kindness circles back even when you've forgotten it was given. Mrs. Baker. Yes. Happy New Year. A real one this time. I smiled, watching through the window as spring flowers bloomed in the garden I was cultivating. Yes, a real one. A new beginning, and for the first time in years, I believed it. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.